Hey, 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 you guys, welcome, welcome. My name is Denise Walsh, and today we are going to talk about grief. Now, as a clinical psychologist, grief is probably one of the most, um, I guess, one of the most profound emotions that bring people into treatment or getting support or help because it encompasses so many aspects of our life and so many different emotions. So let me go ahead. Here we go. Let me share this into the group here. There we go. So if you're listening, I'd love to hear a bit about you, your story, if you've ever had any experiences with grief and what you experienced that helped you through the process. Now, as you may or may not know, grief is a cycle, right? It's not a linear line. And there's emotions such as denial, anger, bargaining, depression, so acceptance, and then even giving back. And it's more like a roller coaster ride because you could be experiencing all of them in the same day. You could be maybe a few years into your grief journey and maybe you feel like you're into acceptance, but then it doesn't take long for you to be bargaining and sad and depressed and like experiencing all of the emotions again. And so grief is emotion that can be felt super deeply. The reality is that time is not what heals all wounds. Processing heals all wounds. Doing the healing work heals all wounds. And so if you're anything like me, in my experience with grief, it could last several years because it's up and down and over and you may be 10% better every year or, made leaps and bounds on your healing journey, but it doesn't take much for it to be triggered back. Now, that doesn't mean you're going to stay there. You'll be able to kind of catapult yourself back much more quickly as you go through. But grief is real and it takes as long as it takes. And so, a couple things to note about grief before I bring on my guest. But I'd love again to hear where you're from. If you could put in the chat what type of grief you've experienced, because there are different types of grief, including, of course, the loss of a loved one, but also really any change in direction, right? You're going along in life and then life happens. Any change in direction that you did not choose, it evokes grief. And sometimes grief happens even if you do choose it, right? You chose to take that job, you chose to move, you chose to relocate, you chose to break up with that boyfriend, and you still experience grief because it's a change in life trajectory. So grief is connected to truly any loss, not just a death, but any loss. And even good things can evoke grief. Right? I remember when I quit my full-time job back in 2010, I was so excited to go all in on my entrepreneurial journey. Yet I felt grief and fear for leaving what was comfortable and what I knew. And so grief can be loss of a friend, grief can be a loss of a loved one, grief can be a betrayal, grief can be a loss of a job. Lots of different situations can evoke grief. And it could even be, I didn't imagine myself in this space. I didn't imagine life like this. This is not how I wanted life to be. And it's this unmet expectation that can evoke the grief. And so there's several different situations, lots of different situations. Share in the comments what situations have evoked grief for you. And then as we go through the healing process, is that the skills that we utilize on the healing process can help us every time we get triggered back into that emotional state. So I have our new Dream Life coach that's going to come live with me here and share her story of grief and how the Dream Life pathway helped her to re-spark her joy and find herself again. Because I think oftentimes we lose ourselves in the midst of the grief process. So, big welcome to Kimberly Meyer. Yay! The crowd goes wild. All right. So I want to hear a bit of your story, Kimberly, because I know you've had your own set of grief situations. So why don't you share a little bit about your story, but then also why grief became something that you really wanted to support other people in.
Yeah, I think when I lost my son, my oldest son, coming up on 2 years now, it'll be 2 years in August. So that'll, of course, be a challenging time, but lost him about 2 years ago. And I realized when that happened, it was totally devastating. You don't feel like you don't want to outlive your kids. But that's what happened. And throughout his whole illness, was sure he was going to get better. And then, he didn't. And just the way it happened was very traumatic. But I found that when I was going through that time, that I had learned skills over the years through other instances of loss that really made a difference and helped me to process, like you said, process that better going through that event and not be. I mean, I was devastated, but it didn't stop me. It didn't put me into that pit of despair and spiral into the darkness, although there were days, of course. But learning those skills over the years was really helpful. And that led me to, like you said, want to give back. God gives us a mess, and I think sometimes He gives us a message to share. And I wanted to share what I had learned for that. But then I was like, well, who am I to share that, right? Because I know what it works for me, but is it going to work for anybody else? And then I found you, and I was like, yes. And because you are a clinical psychologist, and because the Dream Life Pathway takes you through head, heart, feet, and it teaches you those coping skills, I knew that would be help me, but it would also help other folks that I wanted to reach out to. And it really did. I mean, it helped me to identify what I had been doing and give me more. Like, when you start to spiral or you start to, oh, it's the end of the world, catastrophizing, and how to break out of that so you don't end up where I was many years ago, thinking, I'd be better if I wasn't here kind of thoughts. If you can't get out of it, sometimes you get down to that lowest level. So, but it really did help me with that healing journey. And again, give me that spark that, yeah, I can use this for other people.
There's a few things I heard. One is that you had gained skills through years of life situation. And then when you had the hardest of hard life situations, you were able to utilize those skills so you didn't go back down to the bottom. Is that right?
Yes.
But then it was like, so you knew it worked. It worked for
Right.
you. And you
Right.
were able to recognize that you were utilizing the skills you had learned over the years. The question is will it work for others? How do you package it? And wait, what
Right.
did I do? Because sometimes we don't recognize what we're doing at the time, but as we reflect back, we're able to pick up on the things that were really helpful.
Exactly. Yeah. So some of those things, the exercises that we get in Dream Life are so helpful. And it's like, oh, that's what I was doing. And that's why it works. It's like, that's so cool. Okay. Now I know, how to go through that and help other people and apply it for other people as well. So that was really exciting.
And so the content that you learned in Dream Life Coaching gave you the science backing and the
Mhm.
clinical skill backing to say, okay, this is why it worked. I knew it worked, but now I know
Mhm.
why it worked. And now I have resources and the ability to kind of like words to say, kind of putting
Right.
words to the situation, to the experience. So you now can teach it to others.
Yeah. And I will say it also helped me process my grief because I had processed it to a certain degree. But like you said,
Yeah.
all of a sudden it comes around and smacks you in the face again,
Yeah.
and you're like, okay, what was that? But healing through that process and the grief letter, activity and all of those things really helped as well. So,
Yeah. What I love about the program is that coaches do the program first, right? And
mhm,
so as you do the program, you experience some even more layers of healing yourself. And now, as a certified Dream Life coach, you have the license to be able to sell 90 Day U-Turn amongst other programs that you create in one-on-one coaching and group coaching or whatever you choose to do. Why is it important that you had your own personal experience for 90 Day U-Turn before you start selling it?
I think it's critical. I mean, because now you know how to go through it with people, and then you model it. And plus, you know that the skills And the way that it's conducted, it works, right? You start in one spot and then you build over the 90 days, and you have these epiphanies and aha moments, and okay. And I think it works, so that makes you even more excited and confident to use it with other people. So I think that's a big part of it.
It really builds the coaching confidence, because it's not
Oh, yeah.
just you read a book and you do it. Like, that it's helpful, that it's supportive, that it's like, we always say it's the best thing since sliced bread. Like, everybody needs these tools and skills, no matter what area of life they're in. So once you have that confidence, then you want to shout it from the rooftops.
Mm-hmm.
And so the Dream Life Pathway, which is what is taught in Dream Life Coaching, Head, Heart, Feet. Do you know what you want? Do you believe it's possible? Do you know how to go get it? It has tons of different exercises. And some of them are clarity, mindset, thought focused, right? Because we know our body follows our mind. Some of them are healing focused and focused on our heart, the grief, the resentment, any sort of kind of baggage, emotional baggage that we're hanging on to. And some of it is geared towards action and skill building and time management and like doing the dang thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
When we think about the Dream Life Pathway alignment, what pieces of that were really helpful towards healing your grief?
I think the reflection, and I do think that the meditations were really good. I know I had never done those before. I was a little like, I don't know about that, but they were really helpful. And then one of the exercises that I really liked was the thought traps exercise, because your thoughts lead to your emotions, which lead to your actions, which lead to your results. And if you can stop the thought and turn it around, I like to say, turn the frown upside down, turn it around, then you can, you can affect that whole trajectory. And you can use that not just with grief, but you can use that with everyday situations where you just get overwhelmed.
Yeah. Yeah. And so the thought traps exercise, we give you the exact questions to ask yourself, and we do it within the program. So you get live experience with it, to take a thought that would spiral you down a rabbit hole, right? We call it monkey mind. We're just kind of in freak out mode. And we all know when we do this is very human. Like, it's very normal to do this. There's no judgment. It's just part of life. But the cool thing is, we don't need to stay in that emotional mind.
Right.
We can bring ourselves back to present, back to kind of rational thinking. We can take note of how we're feeling and our emotions in the situation, but we don't have to live in there. And so having the tools to bring yourself back to present means when you do get triggered, because we all will, it doesn't have to take so long. Like, sometimes I'll hear people say a trigger can last a week or last a few days, where you're spiraling out of control. And now with these skills, a trigger could last a few minutes.
Right. Yeah, and I had that one time when it was the first Christmas after my son died, and I tend to squirrel away Christmas presents throughout the house, and then sometimes I can find them and sometimes I can't. Well, this one, I found his present, and it was a mug, and it had Legos on it, because he was, even at his age, he was still a huge Lego fan. And I pulled that out and I saw it, and it just took me to my knees. I mean, it was just like, oh my gosh, because I had totally forgotten about it, but with the skills that I had learned, it really helped. It's like, okay, so now I keep the mug, and whenever I see it, I just think good thoughts about him, kind of turn that around. So
yeah, you were able to change the meaning of the mug.
Yeah.
That's powerful. That's powerful. And so the heart exercises, like you mentioned, the grief letter and things, really help to shed the onion layers. Like the thought trap exercise helps you to have control back a bit, right, of where you're going. The heart exercises help you to really release some of those stuck emotions, the heaviness. Were there any of the heart exercises that you enjoyed?
Yeah, the guilt. I mean, I think that was,
oh, okay.
Yeah, because you're like, did I do enough? Did I say enough? Did I pray enough? And I think going through it really helped. Going through the program, it's like you did what you could at the time.
Yeah.
With what you knew at the time, and that was really powerful through the program. So I've used that quite a few times when you start feeling that guilt.
Yeah, you're right, because again, it's all so normal emotions, but we don't want to stay there. And so having the tools to heal through that. Now, with 90 Day U-Turn, you guys, you get a training video that you listen to. You also write. We get a PDF that you write about your own life, because it's not just about, listening to YouTube, right? Because if we all did that, we'd already be there. Like if that was the only thing needed. And so we write about our own life, but then we also meet once a week to talk through the exercises. And then you're also connected with a support coach who can help support you through the process and guide you through the exercises a bit more deeply, or bring in new exercises that are not in 90 Day U-Turn, or really be an accountability coach for you throughout the program as well. How helpful was it, Kimberly, for you to talk through things, not just intellectualize it, but to actually process through it and talk through it along with having a support coach?
I think it was great, because I think what I realized, and a lot of ladies in the group, when we're talking, have realized, is that we're all more the same than we are different, and I've had my experience, but they've had their experience similarly as well. And we can share, and it's so supportive, everybody's there for you. And it does help to say it. I mean, we think it, but it does help to get it out. And sometimes you don't know what's going to come out, but then it does. And it's like, oh, I guess I needed that. So it was good.
Yeah. There's two things that happen when we speak it, right? Number one, we bring darkness to light. So sometimes we do talk about the hard stuff, darkness to light, and then it can dissipate. And we don't need all the time to there's nothing to fix. I think sometimes people are like, let me get to the root of the issue, or I have to figure out why I am the way that sometimes we just need to bring darkness to light. It dissipates. It doesn't own us anymore. And we can move on fairly quickly. A lot of change and shifts can happen in 90 days if we let it. Oh, yeah. The other thing that happens when we start speaking our dreams, which is where the resparking your joy comes into play, is when you speak, you should vibrate all of your cells on that cellular level, and it shifts you from the inside out. And so again, you read through what you wrote, but oftentimes you more ideas just by getting feedback or hearing from other people in your cohort. It's a lot can happen and bubbles to the surface when you're in that midst of sharing. So tell us how your joy was resparked throughout not just 90 Day U-Turn, but the support coach process and getting certified.
Yeah, just focusing on, and one of the things is, what's your new normal, figuring out what it's going to be like after, because certain things are going to be hard, like holidays, anniversaries of birthdays or deaths or whatever, it's going to be hard. But you can look at that and like with the mug, turn it around, change the meaning. And so that helped. And then just knowing what it would look like. For me, knowing that I could take these skills and I can help other people with whatever loss that they have through the coaching and through going through and hosting my own 90 Day U-Turn, and then putting together a grief course. That really re-sparked me, because it's like, okay, now there's a purpose. I can take what happened and I can use it to help other people, whether it's being laid off, or like you said, a divorce, or the death of a loved one. And what really sparks me as well is when I can help these other people, then they can take those skills and teach their kids, and we can change generations.
Yes.
And that just gives me chills.
It's worth every penny, isn't it? This is what we were supposed to do.
Yeah.
And, I feel like sometimes people have a hard time investing in themselves because they think they should already know it. They may even do know it, but they aren't doing it. And it's so lonely to do it alone. And so it can be a battle or a barrier for people to invest in themselves on the healing journey, because they have all these shoulds that they feel like they need to do it alone, X, Y, Z, right? But you found that it was so much faster to do it in community with this roadmap that's guiding you, rather than healing on our own. Tell me more about that.
Yeah, I mean, we're not meant to be an island, right? And I think sometimes when we're in grief, we close in and we pull away, and we don't know what we need, and we don't want to ask for help. We're like, just buck up, be strong. And but having a support network, and I found that it was so critical, having a support network and people who love on you and care about you. And even if they don't know what to say, they sit with you, and I think a lot of times we don't know what we need. And so going through that 90-day and the dream life pathway, it really helped to touch all the aspects, the mind and the heart and the actions. And pulling that all together is really powerful, not just focusing on one thing and not the other. But community is really important, having that support, on those days you need it.
Yeah, exactly. Because you become friends and you're connected with them outside of that once a week group, right? They're checking in, especially with your support coach. You're meeting with them consistently. And then we get to meet in person. So those who are getting certified get to come to a Dream Life Adventure retreat. And so tell us a bit about how fun it was to actually be in person with all of the coaches.
Oh, it was so awesome. I loved going. I went to Tennessee a year ago for my retreat, and it was so much fun. And just hanging out with the ladies, and you had seen them on Zoom, but actually being there and sharing stories and just getting to sit down and have those authentic, real conversations, and not tied to a timeline, not tied to a 15-minute group breakout or whatever. I mean, it was really, really fun to do that. And it was so much fun. I'm going back to one in October. So
yeah, it's so fun. And it's such a great balance of introspection work, like exercises where we're digging deep, we're creating our grand vision, all these things, but also just laughter and fun. Because laughter is such good for it's part of healing too, right?
Oh yeah.
And then connection time, where I always say the aha moment often happens in the hot tub, right? It happens on the hike where you're just chit-chatting with somebody. It doesn't always happen in the formal workshop setting. It happens in these side conversations. And so to have a few days with other coaches who are doing similar work, who they're pouring life into you, you're pouring life into them, you're brainstorming about your businesses, people leave changed, like a complete 1% shift in a complete new direction, and then they're off to the races. So I'm excited for you to experience December.
Well, and the vision casting as well. Casting that vision is so, and a lot of times we found that we're not dreaming big enough.
Yeah.
And so that's really fun too.
It's super fun. And I feel like the world needs more dreamers, and so when we get together, we really can feed off of each other, because we don't get that often in our normal everyday life.
And we can kind of borrow that belief from our other people, because we may not see it in ourselves, but they do, so borrowing that belief from them is really powerful as well.
Yeah. So cool. And so tell us about your coaching business, Respark Your Joy Coaching. What's your dream and vision, and how can people connect with you?
My dream is to help women who are in the midst of grief, or who just feel overwhelmed by life. I mean, it doesn't have to be a big, huge event. It can just be death by 1,000 cuts, right? And all those things that add up, but just who are overwhelmed, feel stuck, have lost their spark, and helping them to find that again. And I'll be offering the 90-day U-turn. I hope to launch that a little later, late summer, early fall, and doing one-on-one coaching as well. So I just set up my Facebook page, so I'm excited about that. It's called Respark Your Joy. There's not much on it yet, but it's coming. And
awesome.
So, if anybody want to get started, do some one-on-one coaching. I love the support coaching when I got to do that, and just seeing someone come in and it's like they didn't even know what they wanted. And then by the end of it, they're like, this is what I want. This is what I'm going to go for. And it's so exciting to see that change and help them find that. So
people leave changed. They come into 90-day U-turn oftentimes full of chaos, right? Spinning a million plates, and they leave in peace. And they will tell me, I knew I needed healing. I knew I needed to create a vision for my future, but I didn't know how. And even if I know what I need, I'm not creating space to do it, because so to have the roadmap every single week really unlocks a lot of layers for people. So if you guys are interested in Kimberly's grief coaching and want to join her group, Respark Your Joy, we'll put all the links to that in the description or comments below, or wherever, whatever platform you're on. So be sure to connect with her and just say yes to yourself, right? Because as Kimberly said, when we heal ourselves, when we learn these skills ourselves, we are changing generations, and that is priceless.
Yep, for sure. And I've used it with my niece. She's a teenager and 16 and stressed out sometimes, and taking some of these skills and helping walk her through that has helped with her anxiety. And so you can use it so many ways.
Absolutely. It's not just 3 months and you're done. It's like 3 months and you're on a totally new track, and now you have skills that you can use for life.
Exactly.
Awesome. Well, Kimberly, congratulations on becoming a Dream Life coach. I'm proud of you. I'm excited to hang out in Destin, Florida in just a few months. So guys, all of her connections will be in the comments below. Thanks for listening, and we'll be here same time, same place next week. Bye.
Bye.